like to welcome Alex Gendron. Alex has been a professional photographer for quite some time. He's a phenomenal travel and adventure photographer. When you think of adventure photography, there are those who sort of preach and they fly first class, they arrive somewhere and they do some travel photography. Alex goes well beyond that. He has logged in a lot of miles on his bike. His skin diving, he gets in with the divers and he documents the whole thing. So he's also an athlete and he gets into a lot of the subjects that he covers. And we'll also talk today about the Holi Festival, which is something that Alex had a chance to experience. And so he's going to be sharing his knowledge with all of us today. So welcome and thank you for joining, Alex.
Thank you for the invitation. That's a good introduction. Thank you so much, GR.
So why don't we start with a little bit of background? Why don't you tell us a little bit how you ended up in photography, how you developed your career as a photographer, and also how you got into adventure travel type photography.
All right. Okay, it's a bit shattered the way I ended up in photography. So I've been attracted by photography, taking photographs and stuff since a young age, but actually I followed like an engineer class. So I am an engineer. I've been working for like 7 years, something like that, and I had like a burnout. So I decided one day to quit. At that time, I was engineer on one side, like full time, and in parallel of this job, I was actually and since I quit my job, I just went to Australia, and since then I just started to travel, and my photography style changed totally because from fashion and products, I went to kind of outdoor photography, surf photography. I had the opportunity to do like ballet photography, taking picture of ballerinas. That was amazing.
Oh, nice.
I really loved it. And then I arrived in New Zealand, so I spent a year in Australia, where I was a bit searching for myself, what I wanted to take photo of and what I wanted to do in life. And when I arrived to Australia, to New Zealand, so after 1 year in Australia, I started to be a little bit more outdoorsy. Actually, I realized that I was really loving mountains, because when I saw mountains again after a year in Australia, I arrived in New Zealand, I saw the mountains, and I was like, okay, that's what I want to take picture of. And a lot of time in my life, I asked myself if I prefer mountains or sea. I think I like both, but I really prefer mountains. But in the meantime, I need water next to where I live. So yeah, New Zealand was great for that because it's quite tiny and you can go from mountain to the sea quite quickly.
Right.
And I was actually living in Wanaka, so it's a little town which is in front of a lake and in between mountains. So that was perfect. And today I'm living in Annecy, so in France, and it's exactly the same. Like there is a lake 5 minutes by walk from my apartment and mountains on both sides. So
right. So why pick one where you can have both?
Yeah, exactly. And then visa. So I ran out of my Australian visa, then my New Zealand visa, and so it was time for me to keep traveling somewhere or to go back to France. And I decided to go back to France, but very slowly. and take the time. So I started to take my bicycle, and I started to cycle every day from Wanaka in New Zealand, and the goal was to go all the way to France without using any engine.
Wow.
So no plane, no nothing, and just bicycle and hitchhiking on boats. So here you can see the map, and that's the map I recorded every day. I added a point from where I started in Wanaka to where I ended up in Vietnam. So the original plan was to go all the way to France, but at some point I was a bit tired of just cycling every day 10 hours and taking all the time like picture of me cycling. So I just decided to have a break for a while, and finally, yeah, it's I didn't get back on the bicycle after that break. I just became
That's
a yoga
lot
teacher.
of kilometers on the bicycle.
Yeah, it's like 14,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And like 8,000 by boat.
You know, it's interesting. I'm a cyclist myself, and every other year we do a couple of road trips with friends where we do the coast of California. So we may go from Monterey to Santa Barbara over 3 days, or we'll do like Los Angeles or Santa Barbara to San Diego in a couple of days. And that's just a fraction of what you did. And we actually stay in hotels every day, dealing with the elements. But in a way, it gives you a chance to experience the landscape, experience the culture, and see things that you would never see in a car, you know, in a vehicle of another kind, traveling by air, you know, or just spending a day or so. It's a completely different experience, is it not?
Yeah, actually, I discovered that when I was traveling with the bicycle. It's when you travel by car, you don't feel the difference of temperature, the difference of humidity in the air, and even the difference of culture. Like, you just cycle and there is like smells, there is like some places it's more humid, some places it's more dry, and you are like, the bicycle is very good because people, they can just come to speak with you, and it's a really good way to connect with people as well.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the gear. I imagine that when you go on a road like that and when you're doing travel photography, you have to be light. Tell us.
Before to start my bicycle trip, I was having like a Canon 5D Mark III, the pro lenses, so big lenses, so 70-200 f2.8. What else? 24-70 2.8. So it's quite big equipment, and in the bicycle it didn't fit very much. So I decided to just, after maybe like a week on the bicycle, I was not taking any picture anymore, because to take the picture I had to stop, open my backpack, take the camera, and my backpack was striped on the bicycle itself. So I had to stop to remove my backpack, open it, take the gear, and if I wanted to, after a week I just decided to sell everything very cheap and buy a small camera, which was at that time a Fuji X-T1, and it was actually fitting in the little bag on the front of my bicycle.
Nice. So a Fuji X-T1 is what you got.
Yeah, and I didn't actually really liked it, because I always shoot with a Canon, and I love the ergonomy of the camera and everything. But Yeah, it was small and it was making good pictures. So the Fuji was working for me during the bicycle trip.
You got more used to it.
Yeah.
What kind of lens? Remind me what kind of that Fuji comes with. Does it come with a removable lens, or is that a fixed lens camera?
No. It's like a DSLR, so you can change the lens. And I bought a quite good one, like a 1655 f2.8. So you can take a lot of different photographs from close up to a bit further and stuff, and so it's good to travel with.
Okay.
And I had a GoPro as well.
And the GoPro. And since then, have you changed cameras? Are you still using the same camera for a lot of the photography that you do when you're not physically on the road, or are you still using the Fuji family?
No, so the Fuji, when I decided to stop my bike trip, I just sold it and bought a Canon back.
Got it. So what are you using now?
Sorry?
What are you using now? What Canon are you using now?
Okay, so when I stopped the bicycle trip, at the time I was a bit broke. So, because I spent a year and a half without, I decided to buy just a small Canon, like a Canon 80D. And after that, like recently, I just bought the Canon EOS R.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you like that compared to all the other cameras you've had?
Well, that's the best one I had.
Yeah. Nice. And what lenses are you using? Are you still using like a 24-70, 70 to 200? Did you get those again? Did you get any new lenses with the R?
Yeah, the R is quite expensive. Like the lenses, the RF lenses are quite expensive. So basically, I have 1635 f2.8, the RF.
Got it.
And right now, I'm thinking about buying 70 to 200.
Right.
I cannot buy it all straight away.
Let's talk a little bit about the Holi Festival, because that's one of the things that I wanted to spend a little time with you on. We get a lot of questions and requests about color festivals like that, and they start up in multiple cities around the world, but obviously the original one was in India. And so I was hoping that you would walk us through that trip and kind of what it was like.
Okay, so when I went to the Holi Festival, actually I was in Vietnam. I stopped my bicycle trip and I already decided that I wanted to stop my bicycle trip and go back to France. And I was in contact with a friend in India, Sudhanshu Verma, and I think you know him because you sent him some gear as well.
Yeah, I met him as well. Yeah.
And so I was with two locals, so Sudhanshu and a friend of him and me, and we decided to go to Namgeon and so we arrived to the hostel the first night, and the day after we took a little bus and we went all the way to the first city where it started, and it was quite crazy. And speaking about like the Outex cover, like you can see every kind of covers over there. Like people, they make them themselves, and a lot of people have like just plastic strapped on the camera. And I think like it's not safe at all to just take picture with this system. And everyone was asking me, "Oh, hey, what's your cover. It's amazing. It's very protective, and you can see the picture you take straight. And yeah, that was a good festival. Yeah. You can just, when there is water, you can just put the camera under the water, and it removes all the pigments, the colored pigments, and that's pretty handy when you just have pigments absolutely everywhere.
So tell us a little bit about the festival and what it's like versus the images that you see.
Okay, so it's wild. You arrive in a city which is full of people who wants to party. And as you can see, like, people that are full of energy, and I think all year they are in their tradition and stuff, and at this festival they just get crazy, and there is no rule and there is no limit, and everyone just go like crazy, and like nothing can go wrong. Everyone is so happy and they throw at you. But when you are like an Occidental person, but
they don't know how you're going to react.
Yeah, exactly. But after a few, after a day, it's okay. Like, people, they just accept you and party with you.
Right.
Actually, when they see like you are covered in pigments, like colored pigments, they just say, okay, no, we don't need to.
They're part of the party.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how many days was this trip?
So this trip was like 2 weeks in India. Wow. But in the Holi Festival, I just stayed 2 days. And it's quite enough. Like, it's very exhausting. Like, there is energy everywhere. You see those women with the stick. Actually, the story of the Holi Festival, it's Krishna and his friends. They went to a city, like a neighbor city, and they start to. His friends just annoyed the girls in the city, and the day after, the girl came back into Krishna's city, and they start with the stick, and they start to beat the guys with it. So those women, they actually walk with the sticks in the street, and they hit people with it. But it's like bamboo stick.
It's a women empowerment story.
Yeah, exactly. And I took some hit with the bamboo stick on the head, and it's quite painful.
So I guess your bike helmet would have been helpful in Holi.
Yeah, definitely. But it can be like very overwhelming, like when the women are in the streets, like hitting the guys. So there is guys protecting themselves with like I don't really know they don't just hit those guys; they hit tourists too. So yeah, that's why I ended up with like a bamboo stick on my head.
Okay. And how many foreigners are there? You know, I imagine that there are a lot of visitors that come.
Yeah.
Because this party is not only in one city, right? It's in multiple cities throughout the region.
Yes. So I don't know how big it is around the country, but I know like it's quite spread around the country. But those cities where I went is the original cities where it started actually, and
then it spread.
And in terms of foreigner, I don't know. Like there was like groups of foreigner, but not that much actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is like 5, 6. Maybe it's touring companies, photo tour companies. They organize a trip to the Holi Festival. And actually next year I'm going to be a guide.
Oh, nice.
A photo guide for.
With this pandemic, nobody knows how those things are going to be impacted. But it's too bad, because it reminds me of Carnival or Mardi Gras on the Americas side, where you've got pretty much the entire country in a party mode. Everybody's celebrating and everybody's out on the streets and taking part of the festivities. So what advice do you have as you're going to become a guide and people are interested or may have a chance to go to an event like that? What advice would you have for them in general? Okay, so first, I would say protect your gear because, seriously, having Outex to protect the gear was perfect, because seriously, you get dust everywhere and it actually stays for house. It's like pink, and today it's still pink. Right.
It doesn't because they use natural pigments, and natural pigments they just leave. But now they use more and more
synthetic.
Chemicals like synthetic pigments, and those ones just stay for ages and everything.
Right.
So and so protect your camera with good equipment, like Outex is perfect for that. And as well, I would recommend to start slow, not go into the crowd directly, because there is a lot of crowd movement everywhere, and it can be quite dangerous to in the middle of that, especially if you're a woman. I think I met in my hotel, there was we were 3 guys, so me and 2 Indian friends, and in the hotel we met a couple of a man and a girl, and at some point we crowded and it was becoming quite dangerous. So I think the best advice is to start slow, and you will have time anyway to take picture.
Okay.
It's on few days, and just don't go straight in the crowd, and take the time to get accommodate with the energy, with the people, with how it works, and feel
feel your way around.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I wanted to also talk a bit about some of your other work, because your adventure photography repertoire is quite wide. I noticed that you mentioned already that you like mountains and you like the water. And I noticed that you do quite a bit of skin diving. And so I was hoping you could tell us more. It looks like Annecy is a good destination for skin diving. There's a lot of skin diving there. I was hoping you could tell us a bit about some of the skin diving work, free diving, that you've done around Annecy as well.
So that's pretty new for me. I started last year, and I always was attracted by free diving, and but I didn't know anything about it. And here, by just a coincidence, Stefan Turo, which a picture of Annecy, and he liked it, so he asked me to just if we could make an exchange, so he can teach me freediving, and in exchange I can take picture of him. So I directly accepted this opportunity, and that's where I started. But the thing is, I haven't been able to practice a lot, because just a few weeks after my first freediving lesson. I broke my arm. I'm quite new in freediving photography, but my goal is to learn a lot more about freediving and to be able to go in the sea as well, because in Annecy there is not a lot to see in the Annecy Lake. It's great to practice, but I think the best is to go in the ocean.
Okay. Now, I've noticed, I mean, I love your in the city. You know, I can see where you've come from a more engineering background and you were used to sort of documenting things. Do you have any photography idols or people that you looked up to, photographers that inspired you, role models that you took after?
Yes, so when I arrived in Wanaka, in New Zealand, I actually met Chris Burkhard. And it was like an Insta meet on 5 days, and there was like workshops and everything, and so I met him, and that's when I decided pretty much to stick with photo adventure.
Nice. Yeah, Chris, I think, is an inspiration to many.
Yeah, definitely.
Very popular. I met Chris back in the days when he was doing surf photography. He started, I think, his career really in surf photography.
Yeah.
And he started taking trips to Iceland and got into the whole, Nordic sky and, the lights and the cold surfing and all that. And his career has really taken off from there. Would you say that you have a style evolving? Do you have a certain look that you go for? Are there characteristics that you associate with your work?
Not really. I don't know. Like some people say, I know it's your picture when it's my picture.
Uh-huh.
So I guess I have a style, but myself, I don't really think I have one, because I don't use any presets for example, like editing my photo. I just go with the cursor depending of the picture. So like there is some people where they always use the same presets, and it makes their work very consistent with the same style. But I don't do like that. So I think depending of the environment around, my pictures have different styles. But
I was going to ask you about that. So it sounds like you don't use post-production presets. You just edit the picture based on the vision that you have and what you want the picture to look like. Do you have favorite settings when you are photographing? Do you shoot on manual? What kind of settings do you use, if any?
Yes, so I have different settings which are not like exactly the same every time, but basically if it's a night photography, I will use the tripod and I will shoot in manual mode. If I am in action and I have to take picture like quickly, I just put in speed priority, and then, for example, when I'm hard to manage everything, so I try to set up my camera quite almost full automatic. Yeah, in advance. It's still it's not full automatic. It's like speed priority. And it works quite well.
Okay. So I'm going to invite questions. So if anybody in the audience has questions, feel free to type them in and we will try to answer them. We've been getting, because of your, being in France, we've gotten quite a few questions in French. and they have to do with the Outex gear. So people were asking what Outex kit you use, and what and how you maintain it. But they were asking through our European group in French. So maybe
le kit Outex Pro Kit. Donc c'est le kit où il y a un hublot derrière pour pouvoir voir sur l'écran directement le résultat, et puis pouvoir aussi utiliser le viewfinder. Et après pour l'avant j'ai un flat port, donc c'est le verre qui est plat. Ça c'est pas mal pour tout ce qui est canyoning, pour tout ce qui est action, etc. Genre par exemple pour le Holi Festival c'est parfait. Et après j'utilise le dôme pour faire mi-air mi-haut, et ça c'est top parce que c'est un dôme de super bonne qualité. Le verre est top, et on peut faire des mi-air mi-haut super facilement qui rendent super bien. Donc voilà pour ce que j'utilise.
Great. Is that it? My French is limited. Thank you. Okay, so I know you've mentioned that you've got the Holi trip. What other events do you have planned, or what other things are you excited about in the near future?
All right, so right now it's the future is quite uncertain, but for next year with the travel agency I'm working with, so it's a photo travel agency. So all the people are photographers, all the customers, and I'm lined up with Namibia, Botswana, Holi Festival, some things in Annecy as well, which we will start this year because we cannot travel away. So,
wow, those sounds great. Is there a place where people can sign up, and we'll make sure that we share the URL or the website if people are interested in joining some of your photo adventures or photo tours? Where should they go?
Okay, so they can go on my website. For now, the photo adventure tour, they are not listed on it. There is just a workshop about taking picture of the Milky Way, which is listed but is not even updated because it was supposed to happen just after the lockdown. So right now it's on hold. But I will update my website very soon, and as soon as I have all the details about the dates and everything, I will just put them up on my website. So the best is just to check the website and maybe subscribe to the newsletter, and you'll receive all the updates when I have them.
Okay. Are there other questions that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about, either about the photography work, the tours, the settings, advice? I just wanted to make sure that you got a chance to talk about the things that you also wanted to talk about.
Currently an online workshop to learn how to use the camera, like the very basics. Because I'm a camera teacher as well in Annecy. I work with Airbnb experiences.
Okay.
So as it's a very touristic city, I have a lot of requests to give classes of like photography classes. So yeah, I don't remember why I was speaking about that. Yeah, like the settings. So that's where I teach everything, all the basics to the people, and then I will add some more workshops about night photography, about the canyoning company, a workshop in a canyoning, like so to learn how to take picture in the difficult conditions. Interesting.
Yesterday, our web series covered canyoning and canyoneering. So
Okay.
we spoke to someone who's now based in Bali, Gus Givon, and we have several users in the canyoning space, and so that's great to hear. It seems like it's a growing space that combines. So it looks like a lot of fun. So if we can help in any way, let us know. We'd be happy to introduce you, connect the dots, or
definitely
get people.
Actually,
talking.
I started. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yep.
I started canyoning photography in Wanaka, in New Zealand. I was so when I was in Wanaka, I met Chris Burkhard, and he was working for the tourism board over there, and it made me dreams, and I said to myself, like, in 6 months I want to work for them as well. And 6 months later I was actually working for them. And I had the months where I was doing everything, like helicopter ride for sunrise on top of the mountains, canyoning, skydiving, and like every adventure possible. And so I was supposed to do just one canyoning session during the month, but I loved it, and like the team as well. I was getting along very well with the team of the canyoning guides. So they were taking me to kind of canyons which are not open to public.
Okay.
So that was amazing. I was I was introduced to canyoning over there, and with the best canyons I ever seen. But I think in this area in France, near Annecy, and in Switzerland as well, there is like amazing canyoning too.
Yeah, this is Alex Arnold, who's based in Europe. So this is a different ambassador that we have that's in Europe already. So I don't know if you know their group, but they have some phenomenal professionals as well, both in photography and in canyoning. And so, like I said, if we can help facilitate or connect the dots, we'd be happy to do it. And we know some canyoneers all over the world, here in Colorado and Latin America, in Southeast Asia as well, and some of them in New Zealand. So there's a thriving community and a growing community of canyoneers, it looks like.
Yeah, that's a huge community. It's quite small at the same time, but it's everywhere. So
well connected, yeah.
And as well, as I'm with you, I like when I take picture in the canyoning, I use usually double exposure. So I take picture of someone in action jumping, and then I take a long exposure to blur the water. And I think really good products for that would be to be able to screw a ND filter on top of the Outex kit. That would be.
So we get that question a lot. There are a couple of things that we already provide through the Outex system for filters. In fact, I may have something here. Hold on. So there's a couple of things that you could do. We have a system of front ports that have a external filter built in.
All right.
And so many of our front ports that we've developed flat, all the way flush to the front, so that the water will run off.
Yeah.
That way, if you get droplets of water, they just run off and they're not going to be in your picture, right?
Okay.
But historically, and I don't know if I have one here. Oh yeah, I do. So our older ports, I think that you can see the difference here.
Yeah, there's a screw outside.
Correct. So we have a thread on the outside, right? So this connects on the inside. So this would be on the inside of your camera, but we have an external thread. They can contact us and specify that they need a specific external filter thread, and we can either make them custom or we can see if we still have them in inventory, and we work with people that way. So if you have a need for a filter, let us know and we can work around it. And then obviously, depending on the filter, you may be able to access it from the inside. So just like your manual focus, you may be able to get through a step up or something like that, a filter that you can still turn from the inside of the housing.
Oh, okay.
And so it's possible, and we do have people that use filters with their Outex system. But, you know, it's like anything, you know, there's a what we call the MacGyver effect. So you gotta MacGyver it a little bit, and there are different solutions that you can incorporate. But because our system is so simple, it allows people to adapt it to whatever needs they hopefully have. And when they have feedback or constructive criticism, like an external thread, we're able to hopefully incorporate that or make that part of our product development process.
Cool. And what is the diameter of the thread outside?
So currently, for all of the front ports that are smaller than 77, they have an external thread size of 77 millimeters.
Okay.
For the ports that are 77 millimeters and higher, they have an 89 thread millimeter, which is not an industry standard. And so threads, we're also considering making like a 95 or an 82, so that it's more conforming, or maybe even an 86, because those are the industry standards, 82, 86, 95. Those are ones that you can easily find in your local favorite photo store, filter threads for. And so we're contemplating developing either an 86 or a 95 to give people even more flexibility in terms of what filter sizes they can use.
Cool. I think I have one actually. I know I have one, but I didn't know the size of it. So it's 89.
Yeah, and there are also external polarizers and filter holders that you can use in front of the lens that you may be able to attach to the outside, even if it's not, again, a permanent solution. Some people have just used rubber bands or straps or other parts to fix it to the outside of their camera, and then they have a removable filter and they can use different polarizers or filters. So that's the other option. It's not as steady to bags and things like that. That's probably not the best option. You probably want something more permanent, but again, you have options.
Cool. Yeah, good to know.
Excellent. Well, it was a pleasure seeing you, Alex. It's great to have you participate in our series, and we're very appreciative of it. We will post all of your websites on the comments so that people can find you and see more of your work.